Hey, Stu. Hey, James. Mark Osborne, good day. I've got a very dirty floor just here, in case anyone was wondering. That's not a dead seagull over there. See that? That's Jane. I'm in steamroller there and a diesel tank. And a steam engine, another steamroller. Gee, we got some junk. Anyway. Not a dead seagull. So, woolly rag, I think. Anyway. I was just sitting down for a minute. Because it's sort of fairly hot today. And I've been at work all day, I'll be honest. Couple of days. Pretty big, couple of 3 days actually. Another one still to come. Anyway, we're getting there. Hey, Bill. Broken glass or something on the ground here. I don't know what that is. Just looking at it now. No idea. Anyway, we should actually do something. Anyway, I'll get up. What have we got to talk about? Oh, weekend. It's a big weekend. Progress on projects. New things. Swap meet buys. All the good stuff. Let's have a look. Here, my joints crack when I wait to get up. Oh. So, went away on the weekend. What did I do Thursday night? Thursday night? Probably not very much, to be honest. Probably had to sleep, did some groceries, did some laundry and stuff. Friday morning went out to Walker. Where's Walker? Walker's up on the tablelands, I guess, in the high country or south. That direction anyway, out west of here. And a bit south. Club member had a steam engine and a sawmill set up there, so we had a bit of fun. A couple of nice meals, good friends. It was a really good week. Good weekend. I was out there, got there Friday night, did I? Friday morning, got there Friday lunchtime. Couple of stops. Friday lunchtime. Hey, TMB. Big truck show and a reasonable sort of vintage truck show. And one steam engine, so stationary engines and tractors. I think I've got enough for a magazine article. I've just got to sit down and write it, put it all together. I was home about dark on Sunday night after a couple more stops. Stopped at Armadale to see friends. I did some shopping. What happened Monday night? Come home and messed around with things. Tuesday night I stayed at work and did a foreigner. I might have a look at that or I might not. And yeah, Tuesday night, that's what I did Tuesday night. Wednesday night I come home and I did some bits and pieces and messed around here for a bit. So where do we start? Swap meat crap. What we get? Got some brass and plastic and wire brushes, toothbrushes. Fairly useful bag of them. That one's actually steel. That one's brass. That one's plastic. So I got a bag of them. They're going to be useful. What else? Found 2 new grease cups. Like brand new. They got made in England written on them. They're not all that old, probably. Be useful for something, maybe. They were the right price. So 2 of them to match. Match pair. Couple of these steel rules. Gee, they're thin. Inch on one side, metric on the other side, hopefully. So they were worth having for $1 each. Junk tool seller. Always, never got enough of them. Inspection mirror. Never got one of them. That's ever something you can find. So I've got another one of them. Need one of them. Some long drills. These are a bit ordinary. I'm not sure whether we've done a paper behind these. They might be good for getting holes in wood or marking holes in wood through long things. My watch just fell off. They've got a fairly long flute, which is probably really good for drilling brass if they were sharp. That one looks all right. I'll just zoom in here and look at some of these. This one's nowhere near on centre. Right, no way that's going to cut. This one with a sharper might be all right. This one's sort of in the middle anyway. But yeah, not a lot of twist on that. And this one's sort of in the middle too, but only just. So they're probably fairly average for the money I paid for them, but we'll see how they go. Might sharpen them up. Definitely Chinese. No idea. They were in a plastic bag, so you couldn't really see them before you bought them. But I don't think they're much good. They might sharpen up all right. Got a window support, which is probably for a hinged opening window. An knob to tighten it down, and a piece missing out of here, the slide's missing, but anyway. We've got one of them. Got a cupboard or a pantry lock or something, a window lock. I don't know what that is. Someone else might know. That might be useful for something. It all still works. Lock works. It's got Lockwood written on it. It's probably been a half decent sort of a thing. Don't know. It's a cupboard lock or something. Got one of them. So that was sort of swap meet stuff. My watch fell off. Oh, mould. You'll hear that repeatedly, because it's true. It's how it is. So I bought a couple of books, sort of the right price. $18 for this was a bargain, I thought. It's labelled Tool Steels. There's no author on it. It was sold by Angus and Robertson, probably quite some time ago. Tool Steels by J.P. Gill, who was the Vice President of the Vanadium Alloy Steel Company. G.A. Roberts is Chief Metallurgist of Vanadium Alloys. Anyway, it's put out by the Vanadium Alloy Steel Company, I would imagine. Burns George, who is Vice President of Sales. H.G. Johnson is Metallurgical Engineer. G.A. Roberts is Chief Metallurgist. Anyway, published by the American Society for Metals in Cleveland in 1946. Dedicated to Roy Carnegie McKenna, Chairman of the Board. Copyright 1944. Third printing 1951. Anyway, good book on tool steel, I think. Crucible steels and forged steels and manufacture and selection and cross sections and X-rays and microscope stuff. Probably fairly interesting, and I probably will sit down and read it at some point. Dry steels and things like that. Anyway, pick that up. Not Chinesium. This one I picked up too. Steam on the Road by Anthony Beaumont. It's an old book. Wasn't expensive. No idea when it was published. Probably it says in here 1979. Anyway, lots of black and white pictures. I haven't really even looked at it. It's an Aveling roller, big one. I think 10-tonner. Lots of rollers and engine things in here. Nice grain engine and barrel, double grain compound. Crane engine. Anyway, another cool book. Clayton and Shuttleworth roller. Lots of pictures. It's a motor wreck. A bit sad, that's an early engine. Fowler traction engine. A single cylinder traction engine. 3184 in 1870. In accident caused by carelessly inserted wheel pin coming out when descending White Hill, Chelsea, Buckinghamshire on the 1st of January 1900. Recovery gang looks serious about the job ahead. They're all little kids. Look at that, how we've got their picture. And duck in the side of the photo. I'd say the wagon's not much, the living van here is not much good for anything now. It's a pity, that's a nice early engine. Anyway. Chinty's got his stick, the gaffer there. A lot of quality flat caps. This guy's got the rerun done on his. Anyway, and this guy in the back with the bowler. So, anyway, nice book. Go on the bookcase when I've had a look through it. Home and Home, the type wagon. Howard Farmer's engine. McLaren superheater. Anyway, probably not everyone's as interested in this sort of thing as me, but it's very cool. The Super Sentinel tipper. And then S4. Yep. Another S4. S8 there. Big truck. Early Tasker there. Lots of rare stuff. Very cool. Anyway, so I picked up that book. Those couple of books. Figured they were worth taking home. What's happening? New video from Bill last night. It's good as always. Oh. Now, all you arty people need to give me some feedback on this. It's got what's left of a decal. It says Elms. Diaphragm duplicator. And the rest of it seems to be missing. Anyway. It's in a box. Wooden box. A plywood box anyway. It's all finger jointed down the corners. Box joint. With a catch. Let's shift some stuff. I'm doing so well with anything here. And it's open upside down. Look at that. Look at us go. Probably not open upside down, but we're going to open it this way up. Right. So what we have is a vellum duplicator, screen print duplicator, or whatever you want to call it. Needs a clean up. This is spring loaded. It's got the remains of a notice or minutes of a meeting or something still stuck to it. It's got a pretty reasonable screen in it, I think. It's got a bent little lever there. It's going to need straightening out to hold the paper in place. Basically put this down and you get the roller with some ink and you run it through it, and it prints through the thin portion of the paper onto whatever you're printing. So basically it's early form photocopier. This special vellum paper was either done with you write on it with a pencil, or you run it through a typewriter. Not ideal. But what I had in mind was to retrofit it a bit more and maybe make some stencils, print or somehow cut some stencils, so we can print some notices for around town in the old-fashioned way. So it's a thought process. It's about all it is at the moment, but that locks down, then I think the roller does come out if you're really careful. There we go. All needs a good clean up. It's a rubber roller. It's actually not bad. It's all fairly friable and all that stuff. But it's all still sort of working. It's swollen up a bit. You might need some actual trim so that it fits between there and there with a handle and an ink pad. There's a brass plate there. It says Ellam's Duplicator Company, London, England. Right, so this is just a thought process really at this point, right? Hey, Mats. Bill's right on the money there. Yeah. So, this actually didn't stay down when I locked it. Let's stay down now. This roller could probably have swollen up a bit. Could probably sand a bit off the end of it with belt sand or something, I don't know. Give it a clean up and so it actually fits back in there. Actually, it's not bad. It's not far out. It probably does just fit there actually. So we might leave that. And you run a bit of paint through there or a bit of dye through there. And it print ink, I guess is the correct term, and it prints on another pattern. So that's what I'm sort of want to mess with. If anyone has any experience or knows where there's a stack of, put this back in place here and lock it in place. If anyone knows where there's a stack of either vellum paper foam or some way of making a decent little stencil that we could put down in between and print through, I'd be keen to hear. So there we go. Hey, Nigel. I mean, push comes to shove, we could make photo resist stencils, screens. We could do that. Not keen to do that, actually. That's a lot of work. So just a stencil under this would be great at this point. And we can put what we need on it and make some posters for advertising the club. So, that's a project. Or not even a project. It's a thing. So we'll see how that goes. We've got a little lever sticking out here. We didn't look under there. I don't think there's anything under here, but we could look. If we open this hinges up, right? It's got an adjustable spring. This board here looks like it's probably two-sided. Probably just lift it out and change it over or clean it. That could be a sheet of alum. Maybe it is. And there's a alignment grid of some sort there, which is tracing paper. Anyway, might be worth having. Probably was a spider in there at some point. Needs a good clean up. It's a bracket of some sort here. I don't think that's original. I don't know what that does. Maybe it is original. Maybe it stops this from falling down or something. I don't know. Anyway, any feedback on that, greatly appreciated. Anyone knows how to make stencils for it would be great. Quick message from Dan Shed, that he sold a truck and bought a truck. So I worry about that boy. Anyway, this stupid lever sticks out again. We'll fold this up, we'll try again. Third time lucky. This one pops around there like that. Yeah, see? Now it's folded away. We can close the lid, put this away. Oh! Anyway, we've still got to find a home for that, but there it is. So, back to clean bench. I have been actively cleaning it up. So, that was one of the jobs tonight. Been messing with this a bit. This is the Stuart Turner Progress. We got the crankshaft in pretty nice and the flywheel spinning nice. He has a eyes being bigger than his belly problem, I think. I think the truck he's bought is probably more pickle. I'm not sure it's any better mechanically, but anyway, I think it's been registered recently and it's probably in reasonable condition. Anyway, why has this zoomed out? Has it zoomed out? No, it hasn't zoomed out. It's zoomed in. Try that. So, got the crankshaft in. I've just Loctited that on there. I haven't actually peened it over or anything. It's just screwed on. We'll see how that works. Hopefully, I can face this off and machine the edge of this round and put a pin in it. This still needs, this face here is still rough. I haven't actually machined that. I've machined this one here, but this one's just been chopped off. So I need to set that up, that way up, I guess, somehow. Machine that off, machine those ports. I've fixed the studs that were the wrong way around in there. TMB, I drilled the axle hole and reamed it and machined this end. So this end's right. I haven't machined this end because that was just... So I'm probably just going to set it up in the mill, probably either that way and machine it, or that way and run the end mill past it, something like that. and make it parallel with the other end. This needs a pivot screw and a spring, and it needs quite a lot off it in places. It doesn't need very much off this port at all. I'm not going to take much off here. There's some holes and things to go in there that are a bit tricky, but this needs quite a bit off it still, probably 1.6, probably nearly 2 mil off here, and it needs cleaning up around here. And this needs a couple of mil off it too to drop it back so that just clears there. And then that's starting to look all right. I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's probably a fraction tight, if anything, but I think it'll free up pretty quick. That's how it wants to be. Need to make a piston rod for this. Need to make a pivot bush for this and the big end. Need to machine this and put a crank in, a pin in it. And then we need to drill a centre hole in here for the pivot to go through. We need to face these, and we need to put 4 ports in here and drill this through and put 2 ports through right through from the end. Probably block one off and run the exhaust out the back, and then tap this one, the top one, to put for steam inlet. Or the other way around, something like that. Anyway, it's coming up all right. Pretty happy with that. At this point, very happy with that. This week I've sorted out this crankshaft, and last week I've machined this base, put this on here. These little bosses on the side here are not anywhere near in the middle, unfortunately. So we're going to file them up to match the holes. This one's a little bit closer, so that's a bit of a job. It's got 2 screws in from underneath, holds that in place. Flywheel position and everything looks really good. I think it'll be all right. We'll get that going. It's another job. I don't think the flywheel will wobble. So that's one thing. It's coming together pretty nice, actually. I think it's going to be a nice little engine. There's a bit of work in it. Needs some tiny pinstriping, that's very true. We can sort that. We need some nice paint to put it on, is the problem. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be a nice little engine. Get this one finished. Oh. That's the book, if anyone's interested. Henry designed a lot of, or helped with the design of a lot of stupid engines. I don't know if anyone knows that. Henry Greenley. I guess these two were mates, but I think the number 10 and probably the S50 and the number 7, the number 1, I know for sure that it was a Henry Greenley design. So this little Progress range of engines was part of that. Stewart only make the oscillating engine now. They don't do any of the more fancy ones in the Progress range. These are no longer available. I guess they'd be buildable, but it has the same cylinder on it and very similar parts. I think this one probably has the same flywheel. There's an under type too. I did see someone had a set of castings they were building for one of them on Facebook the other week. Very cool. Anyway, that's basically the instructions. There's no drawings for it, that's the instructions. And the instructions are pretty that's the drawing basically. It's the port drawing. Cylinder ports. It's a diagram on how to make the big end, which we may or may not follow. There's the crank. Sort of. It looks completely different on the other engine. There's how to make the piston. How to machine flywheels. Covers. How to make glands. Turn hands, which don't actually have the tenon piece on them anymore, so that's a bit more difficult. But I'm going to have to play with that because I've got a new gland and that one's a bit short. So whether we fix that or not, I'm not sure. Anyway, there it is. And it's not a bad little double action oscillating engine. Anyway, that's one thing we've done. Spent a bit of time on that. A couple of nights this week. A couple of nights last week. Didn't do very much actually. It's a new video from TMB. How cool is that? Didn't do very much tonight, but I did mess around with it. I put that crank here. I machined the back of that. And drilled it and tapped it and put it together. The fourth Wiseman, that's a very good question. Probably is. It's called dynamic balancing, I think, isn't it? It probably is all sorts of formulas, but we're going to put up with what we got here. It's probably more decorative than useful, to be honest. Anyway, so that was one of the things. Some of you have already seen this. Did this. It's not terrible. It's not particularly as nice as I would like, but it's not a bad casting. We did these up at Petrie at the Trades Guild. It's a set of castings. I think you've all seen them. There's some. Have a look. There's some funny bits of metal in them. Look, there's all different colours in them around the rim there. So there's different alloys. Yeah, it's to counter the piston rod, that's right, but I don't know, if it vibrates we could probably take a bit off it. So we do have noisy crickets. Now you point that out, Bill. Based on piston weight, yes, it's probably not going to get that well balanced. Excuse me. Anyway, this flywheel, last night I stayed back at work instead of doing constructive stuff and gave the machine this up because I had a suitable lathe for the night. Now, it's got a sort of a difficult thing to machine. All flywheels are. Everyone knows that who's ever machined one. It's not bad. The alignment's off a little bit. Not much, probably a mil. Top and the bottom of the casting. which is very difficult. Even on a match board, it's hard to get it closer than that. So this boss here wasn't circular to the hole. So I've actually machined that up, and I'm going to give this a grind up, clean it all up so that it looks like it's part of the casting. I would be lying if I said that that was a press fit like it's supposed to be. It's very, very close to a press fit. And last night when I had it, it was sort of a 2 taps to locate it, sort of a fit, like a tap, 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 and it was in place. However, today, two years of weekend fun is having a go, to be honest. 2 years of weekend fun gets you nowhere. If you're quick in the workshop and you've got all the gear, probably it gets you a little bit further, but I'm going to have this finished. Some more progress next week, right? If we could get it running fairly quickly, it'd be nice. If nothing stupid happens, we'll have a bit more progress next week. So I've actually Loctated that in because it was a fraction loose today when I come out after work, like because this had warmed up, I think, and actually ran it under the cold tap and cooled it off, and then it was sort of a push fit again. Anyway, I put some 680 Loctite on it with some primer and everything, proper system. I don't think that's ever coming out. It's in the right spot. It's got to have 1.84 inches. Sticking out, which is correct. This is a hardened gauge pin, and it's got 2 needle rollers run on it, or it runs in 2 needle rollers. And it doesn't stick out all the way here because there's a dummy shaft goes in there with a key in it. And it's just epoxied or cemented or Loctited or whatever in there, and it makes it look like it's got a crankshaft with a key in it, which is very clever. It's a smart way to do it because it means that you've got a really nice, very simple crankshaft, and the crank web's a tight fit on it, and it's got a set screw in it and stop it turning, and it gives you timing as well. I think. Maybe, or maybe not. No, it probably doesn't make any difference to the timing. Anyway, so it's not a bad job. There's a couple of holes in the casting when you start looking. There's one there. There's one there. There's one there. I know that feeling, Bill, and I thought there was one on this side too. No, can't see any. There is a couple of spots there in the rim. Now, 2 ways to deal with that. Probably I've got some aluminium powder and we're going to mix up some epoxy and fill that up. It's just a porous casting, and we could put some JB Weld in it or something. It'll be a different colour. But maybe we're going to paint this whole thing anyway. And I'll give all this a file up and get rid of the flash marks at some point when I've got some time. Anyway, this was 3 hours last night, and we've got a pretty decent flywheel. And it's not a project really, it's just one of those things. We needed to machine a flywheel, so we have. End of story. No more information. Super glue and aluminium powder probably works too. We've got some really nice marine grade 2-pack at work, 2-pack epoxy. I think I'll mix some of that up and put in it with some aluminium powder. I've got a tin of aluminium powder. I've got no idea where it is. If I find it by Friday, I might do that. Absolutely no idea where. But it's probably going to get paint all over it anyway. At this point, I don't know. Maybe just the outside rim polished. We'll see. Anyway, if anyone's sort of what story? I didn't hear any story. T&B, in case you weren't aware, and we will come clean with that. See that stack of castings over there? That's what it's for. We'll have another look at them. I think we had a look at them on the channel the other night. There we go. Quarter-size Wright Ericsson hot air pumping engine. There's the instructions for. Right. And that's not really the first part to tackle, but while we had the lathe opportunity, we did it. These are the castings. Oops. So this base is probably the first bit we're going to tackle at some point. Needs a hole in here and row holes on a PCD there, and this is machined to fit over there or fit inside there. Machine flat on here and flat on each side here. This one on this side here is for the bearing support. Goes there, something like that. And that's machined there, and it's got bolts in it. There's a pivot pin in here for this lever, which is a bit ugly, and I'm going to melt it down and start again compared to the other castings. This board here is for the rocker arm, bearings, goes like that, something like that. There's a slot in here for the displacer rod to come through. So the water pump goes on this face. And this is machined down, and there's 6 bolts or something around here to bolt it onto here. There's supposed to be 2 legs for it too. They haven't arrived as yet. We're getting there. So there's an assortment of castings. If anyone's interested. That's pretty nice. Most of these are fairly straightforward little jobs. This bearing support, not much to it, to be honest. Face off and put 4 holes in it. And put a square cutout in here for the bearings. And it's got 2 holes to hold them in. Team B, the 4th Widesman. Did we work it out? Not ideally. I think it's probably something to do with gravity and physics. I don't think what we haven't factored in is gravity, pulling the rod up and down directly. And when you do put that in, it over-constrains it. I was messing around trying to make a beam engine, Watts straight line motion on CAD, which is a bit of a challenge. Anyway, I've come back to it a couple of times, and I'll probably come back to it again, I would say, before long. We'll do something with that. So this is machined down here to bolt that on there, like so. And this is bored, and there's a steel cylinder goes in there. It's just in place, and it's not it doesn't get hot up there. In fact, it doesn't run if it gets hot up there. It's got to be cold up here. and a little water pump to circulate water to give you a longer run. The measurements were exact, so I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's very close. I've done a bit of a Google search, and no one who's built the engine in real life has actually had problems with it, so apparently it works. So this has just got a step on here that goes down that hole in here, and bolts in place. Sort of liner or a cylinder liner goes in here in steel. Had trouble getting a piece of mechanical tubing with a precision bore in the right size. I've got a bit coming from China, but probably not till after Chinese New Year's finished and they get back to work to cut a piece off. So that's doable. The legs are still in Queensland. It's got two nice ornamental legs, go one each end to hold this in place. And this is basically the heat exchanger of the firebox. There's still a fair bit of sand in that, but it's got a burner in it and a sort of pseudo sort of a door, and then it's got bolts that tap into here to hold that in place up against it, I think. Maybe they hook over here, I don't know how that works, but that actually has a clearance to get the air in underneath it, and there's a burner. This casting I'm not happy with. I did this one myself in a hurry because it was one missing out of the set. I'm going to get Charlie to do it again because I'm not real happy with that. These are pretty sweet, really. They need a bit of a clean up, but they're not terrible. There's not much wrong with that. A bit of sand wash out there, but that'll clean up with the Dremel. And that'll machine very nicely. This one needs to be bored for 2 needle rollers. These are machined and bolted, one here and one on the cylinder. And this has got a pivot pin. Which this piece pivots off there like so. And there's a lever off the crank which moves that up and down. And the yoke over the top here, it's got to be machined out to go around the cylinder there. So basically it fits around there. And then there's a rod over the top, and that moves the displacer up and down. And the piston works on the rocking arm. So put this on here like so. The rocking arm goes here. I believe the piston works off here somewhere with 2 rods. And there's a crank arm on here which comes down to this is clear as mud, and comes down to the crank, which moves this up and down. And it's got a slot to clear the displacer, and there's a pump works on this one. I'm not sure the CNC mill is going to get me any faster or more accurate. I think this will go together very nicely. CNC mill's all right if you've got one to throw out while you're getting it set up. And you don't mind spending all your time programming. But at this point, this won't take a lot of machining, and there's not much to it. I've said that before, famous last words. I'll set this up, machine that edge, turn it round, machine this end, bore it, and set it up and machine that one, put some holes in it. Probably start with this piece at some point. I'll machine this, get some legs on it. The legs look like, because we haven't seen those, sighted those bits yet. But they do look like this sort of. Yeah, there they are. They are easy, but there's a lot of jigs and things to be made to set everything up and get everything right. And honestly, a lot of bits on this are just going to be filed up. They're not going to get much more complicated than that. So looking at the basically, this has got a step on here. I don't know if you see that. There's a step on this cylinder, which goes into this hole on this plate. The legs just bolt underneath here. And there's displacer cylinder bolts underneath all that with a gasket, which is this displacer cylinder works inside here, which has got to be airtight. This has got a line that comes down here. There's a pump here. I don't know what this pump bowl here is for. It says it's got one. Don't know what that's for. Seems to be a, here in the side of it, when we look at it, it's got sort of a T-piece and a pressure pump sort of chamber here. It must stop. Don't know. But the water pump works through the cylinder to keep it cool. And it's got two rods here on this fairly complicated little piston. That's probably the difficult bit. So it's got 8 bolts around there, 2 bolts in there for the legs. Or for the 1 bolt for the leg, and no worries, and then 2 bolts there. The sleeve looks something like this. It's 2.218 outside diameter, 2 inches inside. Basically, it's just a matter of setting it up between centres and machining the outside diameter and not really messing around with the inside too much. This has got, basically, it says a 832 hole, which will convert to BA or ES probably. And these here are bored to fit the bearings like that. Not much to that. The legs are basically like this. Anyway. Hey Ian. This shows the rocket with the slot in it. The 2 holes on the outside to pick up the piston. And 2 little bearings in bronze. I've got quite a bit of bronze for them. cylinder, how it all fits together and how it all works, where all the holes go. And lots of machining directions, really. It's got quite a lot of information about that. Very bad. It's very bad photocopy. I don't think anything's really insurmountable. There's the flywheel drawing. And the crank. Power piston. Displacer piston, which I'm not sure I'm going to go ahead with like that. I think there's probably a better system now someone's found. Piston rods and things. Power piston, displacer cylinder. Anyway, it's not a project yet. All the other bits. There's that, basically that spot that crank arm looks like. And power piston bushing. Couple of levers there. And various different systems for setting up the firebox. We've got a cast one. Whether I'm going to continue on with that, I don't know. Pump. All the pump bits, priming cups and things. And the burner. So it's all there. Don't know, not going to promise anything. But we've made a start on the flywheel. I'm not sure there's going to be much else happen. I really want to get that little Stewart done before I even look at this anymore. So don't expect too many miracles. Hey, John. John, we'll just go over this again because this is sort of, I was wondering if you were going to come in because this is something that might interest you. I don't know if you've got a copy of this. Tool steels. Picked this up on the weekend. So alloying and chrome vanadium, die steels, all that stuff. I'm going to sit down and read this. Might learn something, but pick that up. Also a good book. Don't have this book. There you go. I figured you probably would have. But no. So that's where we're at. That's what's happened really this weekend. Someone's going to ask me, so we'll have a look at this too while we're standing here. Now, I have 12% of my battery left, so if it goes flat, I'm not coming back, right, guys? I'll say goodbye now, but we'll carry on for a bit. Been messing with this, right? Went in a bonfire the other night for about 12 hours. Too hot to touch, a bit hotter than that. Since then, I've given it a good scrub out with a wire brush. And a good dose of tea tree oil. A good dose of eucalyptus oil down here, which seems to be going somewhere because that was full an hour ago. And you can't see any in there at the moment. I can't see where it's moving. I don't think it's evaporating at that sort of rate of knots. It could be, but I think it's going somewhere. Soaking in, it's going back past the rings. With this plate off, it sort of looks fairly damp in the outside there, so I don't know. I feel like probably it's coming back past the piston. It might be coming out here a bit too, but I can't see any damp on here, really, on the rod or anything. It wasn't glowing, it wasn't that hot. It's got brass on it, this is brass. So I didn't want to stuff that up. But it's been fairly warm. Now, I put this plate back on. Oh, it smells nice, yeah. I put this plate back on last night and clamped it up here on the bench and got into it with a 3/4 breaker bar and a big socket on the end here. And something moved about 1/8 of a turn, 1/4 of a turn, something like that. Like it groaned, but it went, once it buttoned down, it went probably 1/4 of a turn before it moved, before it locked up again. So something's moved. Now, I will put a Sharpie mark out here on this rod and see if that's what's moving, see if the piston's moving down. I can't see a crack here, so I don't think it's the cylinder head coming off. But I'm going to go and buy a bigger bottle of eucalyptus oil at some point, because someone told me that's the secret. Don't know how accurate that is. And we'll fill this up and we'll keep it going and then give it a good soak and see what happens. But we'll report back. At this point, I feel like something's moved, but I can't see where it was. I'm hoping it's the rod and the piston, but I'm not as confident as I could be either. It'd be nice if this popped off, but I don't think it will. I think we're going to have to push that off separately. Once we've got the rod out, we're going to have to put something in here and push the piston and push this off. This cover's in here about 1/2 inch, and it's locked in pretty solid. So hopefully soaking it in eucalyptus oil will break that seal there in between there and there. BB blaster, I'm not sure what that is, TMB. Have used like a rust spray or a CRC spray, I can't remember what it's called, with not a lot of success, to be honest. Anyway, we're going to leave it a week. It's been 100 years or more so far. Another couple of years won't hurt, I guess. But it'd be nice to get it all apart. Then we can start thinking about putting it back together. Anyway, that's a bit of a project. And it's stuck pretty well, but I think it's weeping past the piston is what I think's happening. So hopefully it frees up. Be nice to move it. What I have found is that we've got a cavity in here instead of what I thought was probably just dirt or something. So you can actually pour something in there and it disappears out of sight. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't put these bolts back in. I thought tonight maybe I might give it a reef on there and see if it moves again, but I think it's too soon. We'll give it a few days so I can see what happens. Probably tomorrow night I'll go and get a big bottle of eucalyptus oil and see if I can get it full and see what happens, because it doesn't evaporate real quick. Don't know. Anyway, that's that. No progress on this donation box, nothing at all. It was away for the weekend. I might get into it on Sunday and see what we can do. Saturday, I believe we're rebuilding the carburettor on the Howard. It's got a dirty bowl needle or something. I think the filler needle on the float is probably stuck or dirty or damaged or bent or something, and it's not releasing as well as it could, so it gets a fuel bowl full of fuel and runs and starts, and by the time you get on it and change gears, it stops. So I don't think there's much wrong with it, but we'll have a look at that. Saturday too, we're going to pull the injector off this engine down there, which will be a fun job, but we're going to do that as well. Molasses is probably the answer. I think probably eucalyptus oil is as good. Probably got a bit more bite in it. We'll try eucalyptus oil. I've heard good things about it. We'll see what happens. It just works as similar to molasses. I don't happen to have any molasses, and eucalyptus oil is fairly easy to get. And it's a little bit runnier, so it goes down all the cracks. Anyway, the theory's sound. We'll see what happens. Red lead paint sticks pretty well, yeah. I've got it. I think we've burnt most of it off, but if we can get, honestly, if we could get that cylinder cover off, I'd be stoked. And probably the rod out of the piston. And start looking at getting it apart then. Anyway. It's a fairly major rebuild job, and it won't happen overnight, but it'd be nice to have it in bits. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else to cover. We've sort of had a bit of we're way over time. Dinner's calling my name. I've got lasagna, I think, in the fridge that I'm going to heat up and have a cup of tea, because that's really probably more important than anything, is to have a cup of tea. And I'll be in Discord for a little while. I'll take the computer across to the other shed and sit in the kitchen. Have you tried to unscrew the rod? Have I tried to unscrew the rod? I don't think it unscrews, to be honest. I have tried rocking it backwards and forwards to try and move it sideways. It's pretty well secure. I believe the drawing from Bay of Peacock that I have says that it's just the piston's just on the rod with a nut on top. It doesn't actually have any keys or anything or thread or anything. It's just got piston through it. A piston rod just goes through the piston. The nut goes down on top, so the nut's unscrewed, and that thread there is working directly on top of the piston rod. So it seems like the path of least resistance at this point would be to push the piston rod out of the engine. And if we get that out, then we can use this puller with a plate on it to move the rest, I think. I've already tried a big hammer. I don't want to bust anything either, because I believe that yoke, that Scotch yoke there with the rod on it, is probably a forging, and probably not in 1856 a particularly good forging, so I don't really want to separate the ends of the shaft or anything and have to re-weld it or make a new one or anything stupid, because that sounds like a big job. Big ultrasonic would probably be really good. But anyway, I've heard good things about eucalyptus oil. in a similar vein to molasses. And molasses is probably all right if we've got some, but let's see what eucalyptus oil does. And probably we're going to be pleasantly surprised because I think we've had some results already. Pretty happy with that. We'll see if it moves. Give it a couple of weeks. Don't expect miracles overnight, but we'll see what happens. Thanks, John. Next weekend, John, I'm probably going to be in Brisbane. I'll call in and see you, I think, on Saturday afternoon. That's the theory. At this point, that's subject to change. I've got to go and see Owen at some point and take his clock back to him, which is all back together and going. But it's not going to be this weekend. It'll be the one after. And I'll probably call and see you, and I'll probably go up to the foundry. Go and see Mark. Hey, Kevin. Anyway, I'm going to watch a couple of videos on YouTube that I haven't seen this week because I've been too busy. And when I've been in the car, I've been sort of out of mobile reception, so nothing's happened there. Sunflower Festival sounds fun. You do you. It probably won't be early, I'm just saying that. If I get there, I'll get there, but I'll let you know. Anyway, be kind to each other. I'm out, I think. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's awesome to catch up with everyone. Thanks for being part of the community. That's great. Tune in next week for more non-updates on this. Not expecting too much progress before then. But I will give it a soak for a week and we'll put some pressure on it and see if something moves again. Progress on this will probably happen. I've got sort of plans going forward that might happen. Progress on this probably won't happen. Don't expect miracles on that. Progress on this will certainly happen. We'll get some jobs done there. And progress on that steamrollers, nothing's going to happen. There will be some bits fixed on this, I hope. Anyway, there's got a steamroller here. And a steamroller. Another steamroller here.